I'm looking around and I'm looking and I want to read every one of those books on your shelf.
I wish I could say that I read every one of those books on my shelf.
Do you have a to read pile?
I have like a to-read library. And I also listen to a lot of audiobooks, and I have a audiobook library. I probably have 10 or 12 that I go back and forth between. Some for
That's a question. Um, how do you find jumping between books? Easy? Can you face shift pretty easy?
Yeah, yeah, that's not that difficult for me.
I have a hard time with
And
that.
yeah, what do you have a sense of what creates that difficult time?
Um, I I listen to because I chef a couple days a week and I have these
Oh,
long
mhm,
periods of time which are perfect. I mean, I used to only listen to audiobooks on travels with the family and the kids, and that was years ago. And now because I want to get in a world. That's what I like about a book. It gets me into a
mhm,
world where I love the movies, so I'll go to a movie for I'm in a world for 2 hours. With, an
right,
audiobook, I'm in a world for 18 to 22 hours, and I
mhm.
love that so much that I when I have to stop, it's almost like "Okay, you guys, you stay right there. I'll be back in a little bit."
I'd be back.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, out of curiosity, what kinds of books do you listen to?
I, have been listening to lately, a detective who lives in London, and he's the what I love about it is the writer paints pictures with words that are just spectacular. I will
Mhm.
stop and write a sentence down. It's so good. Just the description of a sunset or the description of how he feels. I'm a storyteller, right? So I pay
Mhm.
attention to those things and I'm
Right.
attracted to good storytelling.
Mm. Do most of the books are they mostly, um, fiction, or are they
Yeah,
nonfiction? Are
they're
they
they're they're fiction on occasion. I have a stack of nonfiction books, and for those, I listen using something called Blinkist, Blinkist. And Blinkist is a service. I think it's $5 a month or $10 a month, and um, they they tell you the book in 20 minutes or less, 15 minutes in what are called
Wow.
blinks. So
Mhm.
there'll be like 5 blinks or 10 blinks, and you can read them if you want. You have both you reading or listening, depending on what type of learner you are. And most of the time, not most of the time, all the time for me, I get the gist of the book
Mhm.
in that amount of time. However, when a book is recommended that has where I feel that understanding the nuance, so more than the blinks, is going to be helpful to me in some way,
Mhm.
then I because I'm doing a calculated investment, right, in my professional development.
Right, right.
Right. So there's a book that so I'll listen to them. I don't have time to read anymore. So I don't, but I have plenty of time to listen. And so I just finished working backwards. And it's the story of the Amazon culture, the company Amazon. I have 35 friends who work up there, and
Mhm.
know Jeff from TED, and I know a lot of the senior leadership from TED, and
Mhm.
uh, and I've always been intrigued with how they manage innovation specifically, and how do you manage innovation at scale specifically, and this is a couple of the senior lieutenants wrote this book on this is how you do it. And guess what? We're going to tell you because we think this is a great way to run a company. And we're just freely giving this to you. And it's a spectacular book for someone who cares about organizational development and relationships inside organizations, and which is all the kinds of things we talk about are what has interested me my whole professional career, which is how do we collaborate to create things? How do we work at scale? How do you bring innovation to market? How do you monetize an idea? I mean, you know me and the other in my day job, you know that, and so my whole life has been around not art for art's sake, but how do I turn that into commerce? It's the marriage of art and commerce, and so those kinds of books that scratch that itch. Oh man, I'm all about it. All about it.
Oh, that's really cool.
Which leads me to the thing that I think we want to talk about today, which is a back end way of my desire to collaborate in everything I do. And I've found that very challenging during COVID and very challenging as a individual contributor in life. I'm just me and my business now. I don't work in a big company. And I want to talk about something I know that is really interesting to you, which is men and loneliness. And you know how we name our years. And for the last 3 years, it has been on my desire to not be lonely in my professional life. So I've had the year to co-create, the year to collaborate, the year of team. And now that I'm right now, this minute, as I'm looking back, I see those were all pointing towards me really wanting to find collaboration in everything that I do. And I don't think it's because I feel lonely, but I feel that I can get more juice out of my own orange when someone is helping me squeeze it.
Now there's a metaphor. I just had a major visual around that. So when you speak of loneliness, I sort of go maybe two silos, so to speak. One is on a business collaborative level that you're speaking about, and the other has to do with just personal loneliness of men that either come home to their apartment or their house and they're not in a relationship, or men who actually come home and even if they're in a relationship, they are incredibly lonely. And we're going to riff on on that a little bit. One of the things I think that is really powerful is even though, and actually just for the audience to catch up, Mark and I were talking a bit before we got online about how incredibly grateful we are to have the lives that we have and have the partners that we have. And truthfully, I've never been in a relationship like I am in now.
Yeah, likewise.
And a part of, and I'm incredibly grateful and happy in this relationship and committed. And a huge part of what is supporting that to happen is my relationship with other men.
Hmm.
Is that, um, and I've talked repeatedly on here about, you know, quote, my Kimberly. I know that you're married to a Kimberly also. So I'm not saying my Kimberly in the sense of trying to own her, but my Kimberly in the sense of describing who I'm in a relationship with.
Ironically, our significant others have the same first name.
Yes. And are interestingly enough, pretty much the same age, pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but what I'm aware of is my relationship with you, my relationship with other men, such as Traver, such as Connor Beaton, such as um, a guy named Robert, such as a very good, a dear friend named Ayal. Those relationships actually enrich my relationship at home. And when I have worked with men who don't have relationships with other men, there tends to be an incredible loneliness, even if they're in a halfway decent relationship with a woman. And I know I'm talking heteronormative here, so I would include everybody,
Sure.
um, but it's like there's something that happens in relationship with another man and other men, and particularly when those relationships can get incredibly close and intimate. And by intimate, what I mean is when having the ability with another man to to talk about, to connect in sort of the deepest vulnerability that I have, or other men asking me to do that with them, um, whether it be through crisis or even through celebrating wins, because
Mm, mm.
a lot of times we don't connect through celebrating wins. It's
One
like,
of the
oh, good
things I
job,
love,
buddy.
one of the things I
What
love about the
went wrong?
nation is the Friday brag day, right?
Hmm.
To like get in there and talk about something, because we're trained to not do that, and it's not
Right.
and yet there's some wins, and if there isn't anybody there to tell about that's something that you're super proud of, like, hey, this thing happened. And what's interesting about that Friday exercise is, like mine yesterday was that I fired a client, and that was a win,
Whoa.
right? That was a win,
Hmm.
right? Because uh the whole thing was just a drain. The whole thing was just a drain. And it was like, that's not going to change. I can't change him. And
Hmm.
and his company is hyper dysfunctional. And when I come in, I get caught into that. And when I go in, I physically go shields up.
Mm.
And I go in, and I actually have had to develop code to talk with his CO when this guy goes off. And I was like, I don't need this anymore. And
Wow.
fired a client. And we all like in fact, I almost fired him the last time he engaged me. I said to myself, okay, and this was kind of fucked up, but I said, okay, I'll come to work, but it's double what you paid me last time, because I'm super busy. And if you want my attention, you need to pay me double.
Mm.
He goes, and I
And
really need you. And he did. and you have to pay me up front because you tend to be the guy I have to chase for payment, and I don't have time to chase you. So double upfront, and I can start this afternoon. And I did. His behavior did not change at all. So my original decision, if I went with my gut, was, hey, don't do that. And so this time I just said, I'm going to listen. The universe, how else could the universe tell me you do not need to be in this relationship?
So how did the universe tell you that? What did you listen to? The piece around the money, the piece around
it's not what they say, it's how you feel about what they say it. And it's like, I'm an elder. I'm smart enough to not put myself in abusive situations. If he wants to be abusive, he can be abusive to the other people. That's their choice to stay there or not. I'm going to choose to not be in that. The guy's super nice, but he's an alcoholic. And so he has wild mood swings and can just, as his CO yesterday, he didn't happen to be in the meeting yesterday. And I said, he asked for all my thinking, my strategic thoughts on the several big deals facing the company. And I spent time doing that, and I got nothing back. And so I brought those to the meeting and said, here, I wrote about this, I wrote about this, I wrote about this. And he just looked at me, he goes, oh, you're just chasing ghosts. I went, oh.
The guy that you fired, or the CO?
The CO. So and I said to him, hey, next week I'm out. He goes, I know. He goes, I know. Thank you. So this was, I kind of distracted us, but talking about wins aren't necessarily that, I won the game or I broke through the ribbon, but it's a win over something that was holding you back, I think.
So this is a little shift, and I'm actually really glad you brought this up. One of the things that I believe helps men stay lonely is by staying in particular relationships that are unfulfilling. If I'm in a relationship, whether it be with a woman, whether it be with a friend, whether it be with a client, whether it be with a company, that relationship, regardless of whether it's good or mediocre or horrible, that relationship takes a certain amount of time and energy.
Yep.
What's interesting is, for instance, when you and I speak on here, and I think the audience knows we have a very close personal relationship outside of here, there's never a time I connect with you that I don't leave better. Every time I connect with you, I leave better. Sometimes it's better because you have shared strategic stuff with me. Sometimes it's better just because it was the kindness of our connection. And it could be 1,000 different things, but I always leave going, okay, that was good. And sometimes I leave with, wow, I got a shitload of work to do. But
I do have that effect on people.
You do. But it's good. It's good work.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, oh gosh, I'm spacing the name of the man who talked about good trouble. He was a civil rights leader and died.
John Lewis.
Yeah, John Lewis. It's like, yeah, we create good trouble.
So I want to loop back on you saying that was loneliness, but you got to finish your thought.
Yeah, let me finish the thought, because there are other relationships that I am in, and when I spend X amount of time, I go, okay, I spent that time. There are other relationships where I go, God, that was a waste of my time.
Hmm.
And one of the reasons that I believe that we end up lonely is that we spend an inordinate amount of time in relationships that waste our time. Because one, if I spend an hour in relating with someone that is a waste of my time, one, that's an hour that's gone. But it's also it's and this was my point of when I connect with you, I walk away with a plus. When I connect with them or try to, I walk away with a negative. And and so not only have I spent X amount of time, I'm also walking away energetically
Hmm.
less full. And um, and if I'm spending time with that person or that dynamic, what that means is that time is not available to me
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
to do
Even if you
something
want to do
positive.
nothing,
Yeah, even if I wanted to do
take a
nothing,
nap.
which would be a positive
Right.
or at least a
Neutral.
zero sum.
Yeah.
And so I think, I mean, interestingly enough, I think one of the arts of a relationship is to know when to end one
Boy,
so that you
that's you're an avid fisherman. Avid fisherman.
well, I'm learning.
Well, that's part of what makes you avid.
Fair enough.
When do you cut bait?
Mm. Well, here's the interesting thing about that metaphorically for sure. Am I out there to catch a fish or am I out there to be and stand in a river and love the sound of the water, feel the coolness of the water on my legs, even though I have waders on, I'm not getting wet, but I can feel the coolness of the water.
You let the fish go, ladies and
Yeah.
gentlemen. So you're
And
not there to
then,
fish.
right.
You're not
So,
there to catch, you're there to fish. There's fishing and catching.
right. And so everything is catch and release.
Yeah.
Um, I do, interestingly enough, want to be a good enough fly fisherman that if I ever had to, if I were ever stuck out somewhere, I could actually feed myself. But
Hmm.
uh, but uh, but
So
it's to be there, and it's literally, and so cutting bait means to me that I have presented something and it's not being taken. And
yeah,
after a certain
sure.
time, it's like, well, maybe it's time to not present anything anymore right now.
You're holding on to a hopeless cause,
Yes.
right? This, if I just give her some more time or give him some more time, he's gonna no. And guess what? That is never going to happen. They are not going. You're not going to change them. That's just not going to happen. Or you have an expectation that it's unrealistic. There's a story you're telling yourself, which we've talked at length about, that is not true, and you need to be
Yes.
honest with yourself about that. And one of the things I study, being an elder, studying uh, how people survive the loss of a spouse, how they
Mm,
survive this loneliness at an elder age.
hmm.
And um, there's so many stories where, the couple was married 50, 60 years and she or he died, and within a year, the other one is gone. Um,
Right.
and it's typically because they were the everything to each other, but they were the only to each other.
Hmm.
And whereas I'm thinking of my father-in-law, he has, Kimberly's mom passed away a couple of years ago, and there was a period of just him mourning, right? And
Hmm.
that now we can't hardly talk to him because he's out playing pickleball and he's golfing and he has friends and he's out to dinner and he's doing it's having he made a choice to not sit at
Hmm.
home and watch TV all day, but to get
Right.
out. And I think so. Here's a question, Doc. Is loneliness a choice?
Ooh, sometimes.
Now, being alone could be a choice, but is loneliness a choice? I enjoy being alone, notwithstanding what
Hmm.
I said earlier. I enjoy solitary pursuit of things. I do
Hmm.
not feel lonely one bit.
Right.
So is loneliness a
Do
choice?
do well, let me put it this way. Let me break it down a little bit. Being able and willing to make contact relationally is a choice.
Yes.
If we are around people and we're not willing to create an opening or make contact, then we will end up being lonely.
Even surrounded by other sentient beings,
Yes. Yes.
right?
If so, if if we extrapolate that on some levels, yes, loneliness is a choice. Now, the reason I said was a little hesitant in the beginning is that I do think that there are situations that people are in that they have less choice about being able to make contact.
Give me an example.
Um, a person who lives alone and has very few resources to be able to go anywhere or do something. A person that maybe lives alone and um, lives a great deal of their life in fear
Mm,
because of trauma, for
mm,
instance. A person who maybe is in a relationship, but that relationship is abusive, and they don't have a sense of a way out.
mm,
Um, I mean, I think you know a person who has what I would call some major attachment issues that they've never really looked at. So a relationship is actually scary to them.
mm.
Um,
And
those
in
kinds of
in in
things.
those four situations, I think they need professional help.
Yes.
Just straight up. I'm thinking of like I'm a big supporter of Domestic Violence Solutions, DVS, the nonprofit, and
Mm,
they have counseling and they provide help because clearly those people, men and women, uh, they literally don't have a way out, right? And so there's that. I think with attachment issues, having a Dewey Freeman in your life that you see on a regular basis helps you. So all of those things, I don't think us having we're not going to fix that with the things we talk about. I think in that case, if someone is listening to this and they identified with one of those, go find someone to talk to. Write to one of us. and there are research
Mhm.
professional people. You're professional. I'm not. Who can talk and help talk someone through that. I'm thinking about the guy who, when you talked about um, coming home to the apartment. I am honestly not comfortable being alone. I don't enjoy it. And that means out of relationship. So I've always, and I think it was because I had a messed up childhood and was
Mhm.
alone most of the time. So I like not having that. So I've dealt with all that. Dealt
Mhm.
3 marriages ago. Figured all that, where I put all that shit
27
on,
marriages ago, I figured that one out.
but I put all that on the other person. Right. And that's not
Mhm.
how it works. Right.
Mhm.
We know all that shit was transferred over. So I'm past all of that. But what was crossing my mind was when you said someone's alone, but maybe they don't have, and you said they don't have the resources to go do something about that. And I started thinking about, because I'm a problem solver by nature. One of the things, if in fact you come home and you're like, I don't want to go to a bar to meet people because I'm working on not drinking. I don't want to go here. I don't want to go there, right? Because those are all going to be triggering things, right? So
Mhm.
where could I go? And my job isn't conducive to meeting people. And that's also gotten a little weird, dating in the workplace and all of that. So where do
Right.
I go find other people? Here's something that I think would be fantastic for someone to do on several different levels, is go volunteer at any one of the number of nonprofits that is in your community, and we have 3,800 in Santa Barbara. So there's a lot.
Of
And
3,800 nonprofits.
yeah, it's the largest
Oh,
concentration of any city in the United States.
wow.
It's because of all the money that's here. Um,
Mhm.
but go and do this, treat yourself. If you have the time, pick a different one, pick 2 a month until you find one you'll like, whether it's health related, it's working with kids, it's a boys and girls club, it's working with seniors, doing the bike program, picking up. We have people who work on keeping our beaches clean. They meet on Saturday mornings, and there's 50 of them, and they cruise from one end of Santa Barbara to the other end of Santa Barbara, clean the beach. And or go to like our improv class. You meet people who are outside of your normal thing that
Mhm.
you do, and in a situation where you're both giving. So I think there's a lot of um, payback for that, right? There's a lot of
Oh,
benefit for
totally.
you, and most people don't do that, right? Most people don't go
Yes,
volunteer,
yes,
right?
exactly. And exactly. And what's really interesting about being able to enter into a relationship, whether it's a good friendship or whether it's beginning to get to know somebody, is many people walk into some level of a relational process with someone wondering, what am I going to get from this person? And
I'm writing
you
down. I'm gonna say I have a thing for that. Keep going. What
okay.
is what they can get?
And what really needs to be the question in my mind really is, what do I have to give to whomever?
Yeah.
And um, the way, and there's actually research on this, that giving is actually a more rewarding process than getting.
100%.
And then what happens is, if I walk into, whether I mean, I would volunteer to come out and clean up the beaches. I mean, and I actually volunteer here. I
You go out and clean up
volunteer for
trails.
the fire department
Sure.
here.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah.
Yeah, I go clean up trails. I volunteer for the fire department. I mean,
My TEDx
and
work is
it's
all
like, what do
volunteer.
Right. And so, and truth is that even with certain clients, I do some pro bono stuff because
Yeah.
there are some people who wouldn't be able to be here otherwise. And it's like, and when people sit around and they're lonely, oftentimes what's happening is that they're going, well, I wish someone would come and give me something. I wish someone, what can I get? What can I get? And they're trying to fill some level of emptiness. And the most powerful way to do that is to give, whether it be cleaning up trails, whether it be cleaning up the beach, whether it be the local YM or YWCA, or whether, I mean, all of those things. There actually has been a major decline in volunteerism throughout the United States over the last number of years. And some of the stuff that people can volunteer for is really intense. I mean, like our firefighters that come in, for instance, get uh, close to 80 hours of training before they can even go out on a call.
You can,
But during that,
What did Traver do during his year where he volunteered at a hospice? Got training and volunteered at a hospice, right?
yeah,
There's this. So are you saying then that the choice to remain lonely, right? That's a choice to remain lonely, not change your circumstances because you're waiting for someone to give you something, because the actually is continued loneliness a selfish act?
I think some people could see it that way. I don't know that I see it that way. I think what I would say is continued loneliness is often the person who's lonely is being self-protective
Oh, okay. Okay. Fair
because
enough.
of
Fair enough. Yeah.
something that has happened in their life. And because if I were to say continued loneliness is a selfish act, then on some levels it's like a blaming kind of a thing. It's like, oh,
got it.
you're
Got
so
it.
damn selfish. No wonder you're lonely. That's not what I
Fair point.
see.
Fair point. It's that self-protection for a ton of
Right.
different reasons. So this, I think that adds puts a little chip on the scale towards volunteerism, because when I go to volunteer, I'm not going, if I'm truly in the spirit, I'm going to give my time freely and not get anything out of it. I'm not going there to look to find someone to have a relationship with. I'm going there to help a cause, and maybe I'll make a friend. Chances are you will make a friend. You'll make more than one friend. What I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to say earlier when you were saying about freely giving, and we have shorthand for that in our house,
What is it?
which is I want my hand up instead of my hand out.
Mm, I love that.
How can I help? I'm volunteer. How
Yeah.
can I help? What do you got for me?
Versus, right.
And that, I'll tell you the genesis of that. Speaking of vulnerability, I'm for a long time was always raising money for something. Raising
Mm,
money for TEDx, raising money for a company, always raising money. And I heard through a friend, oh yeah, Mark always has his hand out. And that made me, I felt bad about that. It's like, oh, I have a reputation. deservedly so, because I'm always either not for
Mhm.
me personally, but I'm, you know,
Sure.
always asking money. And it's like, wow, okay, guess what? From now on, my hand's going to be up instead of out. And
Mhm.
that's where that came from for me, was be that guy.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So
Luckily,
actually,
someone felt strong enough, secure enough in our relationship, they could tell me that and not have
mhm,
me flip out and be defensive.
mhm.
It's because it was true.
Well, yeah. So what happened inside you that stopped you from flipping out and going, well, what do you mean? All I'm trying to do is
I
help
knew
this
exactly what he
organization.
meant. I knew exactly what he meant.
Mm.
I could be
So,
honest. This was within the last 20 years.
so you felt secure enough in yourself to hear that and go, oh, yeah, got it.
Yeah. And if in fact you are needing to raise money for legitimate reasons, if people see you coming and all of a sudden they're too busy, like that's not going to work. So don't be that guy, right?
Mhm, mhm,
Thankfully, that was the universe tapping that person on the shoulder saying, you got to tell your buddy Mark this.
mhm.
So he knows that. And it changed everything. Literally changed everything, that 15-second conversation. And I don't
Wow.
even remember who it was. But I remember how it made me feel like that I don't like everybody cares what people think about you. And I didn't want
Well, of course.
people thinking that about me, because that's not in one instance and that could change. So I changed that behavior.
So, with what you said, that everybody cares what others think about you, I think that's true, that we do care. There's a lot out there that says, don't worry about what other people think about you. But even the people who go, yeah, I don't care what someone thinks about me, they wouldn't say that if they actually really didn't care. They just
They
wouldn't
still
care.
comb their hair.
Right. So, yeah, when people say that, it's sort of like somebody saying, I want to set up a meeting to tell you that I don't like you. Just like, if you're going to, don't set up a meeting, just tell somebody you don't like. Um, the uh, Here's the other piece that strikes me is I know that we have talked about projection here on this show before, where projection is that thing that we do where we think that we know what other people think about us, or if I do this, well, so and so is going to think this, or so and so is going to think that. That's the piece I think that really is important to take a look at, because one of the reasons that people are lonely and don't go do certain things is because they have some projection of what other people might think. Well, if I go out, they won't think I'm good, or they won't think I'm attractive, or they won't think I'm whatever. And so many people actually, instead of going to volunteer, instead of going out to do something, or instead of going and playing on your local fun volleyball team or whatever it is the people actually project that, well, I'm not good enough for that, or if I do that, so and so think this. And we really need to be careful of that, because those are stories that we tell ourselves that,
Are not true.
like, yeah, they're just not true. They're just not true.